President Trump gave a CPAC speech. Now, we'll get to a very cringeworthy moment in a short amount of time. But before we get to that, I want to show you, he comments on what's happening with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And he talks about Biden and, how Biden's messing it up. Now, this is one of, I've now seen 3 clips total, including this one, of Trump talking about this issue. He was asked by some news network, it was either like Newsmax or One American News Network, one of those fringe right-wing outlets, like basically, what would you do differently? And his answer was, beep, 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 beep. What would I, he doesn't say, but of course, he somehow strongly criticizes Biden without saying what he would do differently in any respect, okay? So, but this is an example of that from in his speech. Let's take a look.
I have no doubt that President Putin made his decision to ruthlessly attack Ukraine only after watching the pathetic withdrawal from Afghanistan, where the military was taken out first, our soldiers were killed, and American hostages plus $85 billion worth of the finest equipment anywhere in the world were left behind. Yesterday, reporters asked me if I thought President Putin was smart. I said, of course he's smart, to which I was greeted with, oh, that's such a terrible thing to say. I'd like to tell the truth. Yes, he's smart. The NATO nations, and indeed the world, as he looks over what's happening strategically with no repercussions or threats whatsoever, they're not so smart. They're looking the opposite of smart. If you take over Ukraine, we're going to sanction you, they say. Sanction? Well, that's a pretty weak statement. Putin is saying, oh, they're going to sanction me. They sanctioned me for the last 25 years. You mean I can take over a whole country and they're going to sanction me? You mean they're not going to blow us to pieces, at least psychologically? The problem is not that Putin is smart, which of course he's smart, but the real problem is that our leaders are dumb. Dumb.
I mean, it's classic Trump. He talks for an extended period of time without saying anything of substance. In fact, in the other interview on this, he's like, well, I would do something totally different, but I can't really talk about what I would do differently because I wouldn't want to broadcast to them what I'd do differently. It was the same thing. Remember, he used to say this all the time about ISIS on the campaign trail. I'm going to destroy ISIS, but I'm going to do it very quietly. And I'm not going to broadcast my plans because then they'll know it. And then, we have to make sure we keep it under wraps. So just trust me. It's like a just trust me argument. So wait a second. But you mock sanctions in there. You mock sanctions. Like, what are you going to, they want to do sanctions? You're going to sanction Putin? Well, he's been sanctioned for decades. Like, what's that going to do? Okay, so if you don't want to do sanctions, well, what do you want to do? What else do you want to do? And then he goes, blow them to pieces. Psychologically. What does that mean? Blow them to pieces psychologically? I'm really going to be stern in how I'm telling you this is wrong and bad. Look at my aggressive tone. Putin, stop it. It's like the video Tulsi Gabbard released after taking the opposite position for so long. Finally, when the winds were too overwhelming in the other direction, she's like, but Putin, stop it. You've made your point. You've made your point. What? This is what Trump saying, mocking sanctions, not saying anything he'd do differently, but implying like we should blow them up psychologically. So what's your argument? Don't do any of the sanctions, but just be angrier in your comments against them, or do even stronger sanctions and be angrier in your tone against them, or do some sort of military action. What's your answer? What's your solution? He doesn't give one because he doesn't have one. He's such an opportunist and a charlatan. It's so obvious. It's amazing to me that some people still don't see it, although to be fair, most people see it now. And then his point early on, he talks about Putin made his decision to attack Ukraine after the Afghanistan withdrawal. Trump is the biggest flip-flopper on the planet because how many times did he say when he was president, we're going to get out of Afghanistan, it's so stupid, we shouldn't be there, it's terrible, it's wrong, it's bad, we need to rebuild America, why are we wasting our tax dollars over there? And all that stuff was based and true, but he didn't have the balls to follow through with the withdrawal. He didn't have the balls to do it. He would posture like he was going to do it, and then ultimately he wouldn't do it, probably because some general would walk into the Oval Office and say, "Sir, this is a bad idea." And he'd be like, "No, you're right. You're right. It's a bad idea. Let's not do that." He didn't have the balls to stand up to them. One of the best things Biden did was pull out of Afghanistan. Now, yeah, it was messy when you do it, because it turns out when you end like a 20-year war and occupation, it gets kind of messy. Who knew? But big picture here, it was the right thing to do. How long do you want to stay there? You want to stay there forever? Is that what you wanted to do? No, I would have withdrawn in a much more positive way. I would have withdrawn very, very strongly is what I would have done. And then it would have worked out because it was a very strong withdrawal, not a weak withdrawal. If he withdrew or Biden withdrew or anybody else withdrew, it was always going to be a mess when we left because the government was a total puppet government. It was fake. It was a paper tiger, and it went down like that. So that would have happened under anybody. So what do you want to do? Just stay there forever? Is that the idea? And this idea that Putin's looking at that and that's the reason why he's doing it, I don't buy that at all. I don't buy it at all. He's much more interested in the politics of the region and his sphere of influence and the actions of European countries and the actions of the post-Soviet states. Jesus Christ. I mean, he did it. He invaded. Look. This idea, oh, he wouldn't have done it under me, which is another thing I've heard Trump saying, but he did do it under George W. Bush in 2008 in Georgia. And on paper, George W. Bush is very similar to Trump. You know, not the smartest guy in the world, psycho Republican war hawk. He did it then. He did it under Obama with Crimea, and he did it under Biden. If Trump got a second term, Putin still probably would have done it. And Lord only knows how Trump would have reacted. You know, that non-steady hand of leadership is terrifying because the fact of the matter is, remember how he threatened bombing North Korea? I mean, could you imagine this in this instance? Trump's in office, he's still on Twitter, and he sends out a tweet where Trump threatens nuclear annihilation against Russia. Oh my God, bro. Oh my God. So look, he doesn't have any answers, and he can't. I've seen this all over the place now. Just really ruthless criticism of Biden without saying at all what these people are in favor of. You should be super specific about what policies you support. But it's just a game to these people. This isn't a game. This is life and death. And, you know, we've gone over it 1,000 times on this show. I've given you guys my position. I want to do the strongest sanctions you could possibly do that do not hurt Russian civilians. I'd go to town on the oligarchs. I'd go to town on Putin. That sounded weirdly sexual. I would do whatever I can to restrict their wealth and their power and unify the world against them. So, but I'd try my best to not do any sanctions that hurt Russian civilians. That's our only path forward. That plus some sort of negotiation and diplomacy and de-escalation, which at this time seems like a pipe dream, but it's necessary for the fate of humanity. That's what I would do. But they can't tell you. They can't tell you. And it really shows you they don't take this stuff seriously, and it's pathetic. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.